Welcome, dear viewers. You are watching the Ruslan Belov channel, and on today's agenda is a review of the key events that took place around the world as of March 19, 2026. The day proved to be exceptionally eventful and rich in significant developments, so let us get straight to the point. We open our review with the Middle East. In my view, that is where the most significant and impactful news of the past 24 hours has originated. To be more precise, the rapid sequence of events began the previous evening, on March 18, 2026, when leading global media outlets distributed footage and photographs capturing the aftermath of a coalition strike against one of Iran's largest gas fields, as well as against the country's fuel and energy infrastructure facilities. Analysis of these objective control materials allows us to say with considerable confidence that the struck objects sustained damage of a critical nature. Almost immediately after the strike concluded, Iran's leadership issued a statement of fundamental importance. All analogous energy infrastructure facilities located on the territory of Persian Gulf states are henceforth declared legitimate military targets, meaning any countries that participate in strikes against Iran or whose territory is used to carry them out. Following this declaration, Iran published a series of maps marking zones subject to the immediate evacuation of civilian populations. Among the designated areas were the eastern part of Saudi Arabia, in the vicinity of Al Jubail. Within Qatar, the industrial city of Ras Laffan in the north of the country, and the industrial city of Mesaid in the south, and the largest gas field in the south of the United Arab Emirates. Following the publication of these maps, the authorities of the Gulf states immediately began mass evacuations of the population from the designated zones, and within mere minutes or hours, Iran launched ballistic missile strikes against the countries of the region. The first objective control materials were not long in coming. According to available information, the heaviest damage was sustained by the industrial city of Ras Laffan in northern Qatar, the largest liquefied natural gas processing hub in the world. Images published by Chinese sources clearly demonstrate that approximately half of the facility's production capacity was subjected to a massive attack, and the restoration of its operational capability in the foreseeable future appears extremely unlikely. Shortly thereafter, satellite imagery appeared with markings indicating thermal anomalies, red squares covering between 33 and 40% of the industrial complex's area, pointing to a large-scale and sustained fire. When exactly local services will manage to bring the situation under control remains unknown. The strikes proved exceptionally powerful and immediately triggered yet another surge in energy prices, oil, gas, and electricity, hitting the markets of the European Union hardest of all. The United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Bahrain all came under attack, but during the night of March 19th, a highly significant strike was also delivered against Saudi Arabia, against the country's capital Riyadh and one other strategically important city. In Riyadh itself, the epicenters of the strikes were concentrated in the southeastern industrial district. Footage from the scene shows fires, explosions, and flashes. Apparently, individual missiles successfully reached their targets and struck the kingdom's energy infrastructure. Thermal anomaly imagery published subsequently confirmed that the industrial facility sustained serious damage. At the same time, another strike deserves particular attention, this one directed at the western part of Saudi Arabia against the city of Yanbu and the energy infrastructure facilities located within its boundaries. Local sources recorded powerful explosions, and a substantial amount of footage appeared online. An important piece of context must be recalled here. After the conflict in the vicinity of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, the traditional export corridor for most countries of the region, effectively blocked the strait, Saudi Arabia and a number of other states managed to redirect their export flows through the port of Yanbu. This allowed them to preserve revenues and maintain the functioning of their national economies. Now, however, the strike against the port and energy infrastructure of this city means that Iran has effectively extended its fire control to the western export route as well. According to available reports, following the attack, Saudi Arabia was compelled to significantly curtail its export capacity through this route too. It can therefore be stated that Iran is establishing dense fire control over the entire export infrastructure of the Persian Gulf states. At this point, another critically important circumstance connected with the western direction must be noted. Throughout the entire previous week, and indeed from the very beginning of the conflict, the American carrier strike group centered on the USS Gerald R. Ford had been operating in the waters near Yanbu. The group was providing security coverage on this axis, and a number of sources had speculated about a possible southeastward redeployment to reinforce the carrier group of the USS Abraham Lincoln. However, several days ago, a fire broke out aboard the vessel, and according to available information, yesterday or the day before, the carrier strike group departed the Yanbu area and was forced to withdraw to the vicinity of the island of Crete. Apparently, the departure of the American fleet served as a signal for Iran to test the effectiveness of the local air defense system, and the city was promptly subjected to a massive bombardment. It is also possible that this withdrawal contained an element of American political pressure. Washington has thus far been unable to assemble a coalition for a ground operation to unblock the Persian Gulf, and through this move it may have been hoping to push Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain and Kuwait toward more active participation in joint operations against Iran. For now, however, the countries of the region continue to confine themselves to statements and refrain from concrete military steps. In the meantime, American amphibious assault vessels are gradually closing in on Iran from the southeast. Even by the most optimistic calculations, however, the formations currently located in the vicinity of Singapore will need at least 10 days to reach Iran's southeastern approaches. And that is more than enough time for oil prices to continue setting record after record. As of March 19, 2026, oil prices are fluctuating around $100 per barrel. Brent crude is already trading above $110, while grades marketed directly by the Gulf states are at certain moments reaching $130, $140, and even $150 per barrel. The energy market is experiencing an unprecedented price spike. We now turn to the Ukrainian theater of operations, where a considerable number of significant events have also occurred. During the night of March 19th, the two sides once again exchanged massive drone strikes. Ukraine deployed hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles in attacks against the southern regions of the Russian Federation. Russia's Ministry of Defense reported the destruction of approximately 200 drones in the Krasnodar region and over the Black Sea. Footage documenting the operations of Ukrainian armed forces over the Crimean Peninsula is arriving with increasing frequency, indicating that the southern axis and the Black Sea area represent a priority for both sides at this stage. Kyiv is clearly seeking to exhaust and at least partially suppress Russia's air defense system in this sector. In response, Russian forces also struck with drones. According to Ukraine's Ministry of Defense, during the night of March 19th, Russia employed 133 unmanned aerial vehicles against military targets on Ukrainian territory. A significant number of explosions were recorded in Odessa. According to various reports, approximately 26 drones were directed at the city. Strikes were also carried out against energy infrastructure facilities across the country. Published footage shows several energy facilities struck over the past few days. Zaporizhzhia also came under nocturnal bombardment, with numerous explosions recorded, apparently targeting energy infrastructure and possibly the buildings of territorial recruitment centers, similar to what had occurred in Sumy and Chernihiv in the preceding days. Notably, all these mutual strikes coincided in time with the beginning of a large-scale Russian army offensive on the Zaporizhzhia sector of the front. Over the past 24 hours, a number of changes have occurred here, all of them relating to the western Zaporizhzhia direction. Several weeks ago, Russia's Ministry of Defense confirmed the advance of its units in the area of the village of Rekhnoye. Today, Ukrainian sources published footage of a Ukrainian counterattack in this direction, indirectly confirming that control over Rekhnoye has passed to Russian forces, even though counterstrikes continue unabated. According to available assessments, their primary purpose is to divert the attention of the main Russian forces, which are at present apparently storming Orakov from the south. The concentration of Russian troops on this axis is confirmed by numerous sources on both sides. In parallel, Russian units are actively advancing along the Verkhnaya Tersa, Vozdvizhenka line, from which extensive footage documenting the destruction of Ukrainian equipment and positions continues to arrive. The map on this sector, it appears, will undergo substantial changes in the near future. On the Dobropilya direction, Russia's Ministry of Defense has not yet officially reported on the situation at Hryshyn, but independent cartographers have already begun making corrections beyond the boundaries of that settlement, extending the front line toward Novoalexandrivka and then Serhivka. Apparently, the Russian army has already moved beyond the limits of Hryshyn and is advancing northward. Simultaneously, a forward push is being recorded along the M30 highway, apparently aimed at enveloping the eastern outskirts of Serhivka. The impression is forming that following the breakthrough of Ukrainian defenses at Hryshyn, a localized front collapse has occurred on the segment between Dobropilya and Serhivka, into which Russian units are now actively pressing. On the Druzhkivka direction, Russia's Ministry of Defense today reported a significant advance in the area of Pavlivka. The map on this sector has been adjusted in accordance with the official data. The Kostiantynivka direction saw no territorial changes today. Footage is arriving of strikes using aerial bombs and FAB glide bombs against forward Ukrainian positions around the city's perimeter. The assault on Kostiantynivka has been underway for quite some time, yet the configuration of the front on this sector has remained essentially unchanged of late. Significant news is coming from the Sloviansk direction. Today, Russia's Ministry of Defense confirmed the capture of Fedorivka, a key fortified strongpoint of Ukrainian defenses. As of yesterday, March 18th, the map looked different. Today, on the basis of the official confirmation, the corresponding adjustment is being made. Russian units are now advancing on Dibrova, a small settlement located to the west of Fedorivka Druha, beyond which the path opens toward the southwestern outskirts of Oleksandrivka. This settlement represents the most critical nodal element of the Ukrainian defensive line on the Sloviansk direction. We have emphasized this point on numerous occasions. The loss of Oleksandrivka will signal the beginning of direct combat operations for the Sloviansk agglomeration. We conclude our review with the northern Kupiansk direction, from which exceptionally important footage has arrived from the central part of Kovsharivka. As a reminder, according to a number of sources, Kovsharivka was effectively the last remaining settlement on the northern Kupiansk sector that was still under Ukrainian control. Today, Russian sources distributed a video in which, according to its author, Russian servicemen are conducting search operations in Kovsharivka, hunting for Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups that regularly infiltrate from the opposite bank of the Oskil River. The documented episodes unfolded on Belova Street, near one of the buildings and at the local House of Culture. It should be noted, however, that a portion of the expert community has questioned the identification of the servicemen shown in the footage, and as a result, no official map corrections have yet been made. Nevertheless, if the affiliation of the fighters shown with the Russian army is confirmed, this will mean that the battle for the eastern bank of the Oskil on the northern Kupiansk axis has effectively concluded. In the near future, additional footage should be expected to appear, including the traditional flag-raising scenes. It appears that the northern salient between Kupiansk, Kovsharivka, and Hlushkivka is already either within an extensive grey zone or under Russian army control. This should become definitively clear in the very near future. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel, leave your likes, and all the very best to you.